I was 7 years old the first time I watched my grandmother heal someone with nothing but her hands and a few leaves from her garden. My cousin had fallen from the old oak tree, his knee split open and bleeding, and instead of panicking like the rest of us, Grandma simply walked to the edge of her backyard, plucked a handful of broad green leaves that I'd always thought were weeds, crushed them between her weathered palms, and pressed them directly onto the wound. The bleeding stopped within seconds. The paste she made had this earthy, slightly bitter smell that I can still recall perfectly decades later. She wrapped his knee with a clean cloth, made him drink something warm that tasted like mint and honey, and by the next morning the swelling was gone. No emergency room, no antibiotics, no follow-up appointments, just plants. I didn't think much about that day for years. It was just something Grandma did, the way she did everything else that seemed like quiet magic to a child. She never explained it, never made it seem special. It was simply how things were done. When I got a fever, she'd steep chamomile flowers in hot water until the liquid turned golden, then make me drink it while the steam opened up my sinuses. When my mother had headaches that would leave her lying in a dark room for hours, Grandma would appear with fresh lavender bundled in muslin, which she'd heat and press to Mom's temples. The headache would fade, always. I grew up watching this, absorbing it, without knowing I was learning anything at all. Then I became an adult, and somewhere along the way I forgot. We all did, didn't we? Life got busy, modern medicine got convenient, and that old knowledge just quietly slipped away like water through fingers. I remember the first time I had to take my daughter to the urgent care for a simple ear infection. The waiting room was packed. We sat there for 3 hours, and when we finally saw a doctor, the entire consultation lasted maybe 6 minutes. He prescribed an antibiotic, charged us $140, and sent us on our way. My daughter cried the whole drive home because her ear still hurt, and we wouldn't see any relief for another day or two while the medication kicked in. Sitting in traffic, listening to her whimper, something clicked in my mind. A memory surfaced. Grandma, pressing warm mullein oil into my ear when I was small, the pain dissolving almost instantly. That night, after my daughter finally fell asleep, I started searching. Not online at first, but in old boxes in my parents' attic. I found Grandma's journals, these worn leather notebooks filled with her slanted handwriting, documenting every plant she grew, every remedy she made, every treatment that worked. The pages smelled like dried herbs and thyme. I stayed up until dawn reading them, and what I found there shook me. This wasn't folklore or superstition. This was medicine. Real, effective, tested over generations medicine that had been completely erased from my life, from my daughter's life, from our collective memory. I became obsessed. I started talking to elderly neighbors, anyone who still remembered. I visited botanical gardens, studied historical medical texts, cross-referenced everything with modern research. What I discovered was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Every single remedy Grandma used had scientific backing. Chamomile contains apigenin, a compound that binds to the same brain receptors as anti-anxiety medications. Lavender's linalool and linaloyl acetate have been proven in clinical studies to reduce cortisol and lower heart rate. That plantain leaf she used on my cousin's knee, it contains allantoin, aucubin, and mucilage, all documented for their ability to stop bleeding, prevent infection, and accelerate tissue repair. The pharmaceutical industry didn't invent these healing properties. They isolated them, patented them, and convinced us we needed to buy them in a bottle instead of growing them in our backyard. I spent 2 years compiling everything I found into a complete guide. Every plant, every preparation method, every use our grandparents knew by heart. That guide is the first link in the description below, because what I'm about to share with you is just the beginning of what's been lost. Let me tell you about yarrow, Achillea millifolia, named after the Greek hero Achilles, who according to legend used it to treat his soldiers' wounds during the Trojan War. My grandmother called it soldier's wound wort, and she kept it growing wild along her fence line. The first time I harvested it myself, I was skeptical. I'd cut my hand pretty badly on a piece of broken glass while working in my own garden, blood running down my wrist. I remembered Grandma's instructions: crush the fresh flowers and leaves, apply directly to the wound. The bleeding stopped in less than a minute. Not slowed, stopped. I stood there, staring at my hand, unable to believe it. Modern research has since confirmed that yarrow contains a choline, a compound that increases blood clotting speed by up to 300%. Our ancestors didn't know the chemistry, but they knew it worked, and that knowledge kept people alive for thousands of years. Or echinacea. We see it now as a trendy supplement, something you buy in capsules at health food stores for $20 a bottle. But my great-grandmother grew it as a fence row plant, and when anyone in the family got sick, she'd dig up the roots, make a tincture, and we'd take it at the first sign of a cold or flu. I didn't understand why until I researched it. Echinacea stimulates the production of white blood cells, specifically macrophages and natural killer cells, your body's first line of defense against infection. Multiple clinical trials have shown it can reduce the duration and severity of upper respiratory infections by up to 58%. My great-grandmother didn't have those studies. She just knew that when people took her echinacea tincture, they got better faster. The more I learned, the angrier I became. Not at doctors or pharmaceutical companies really, but at what we'd lost. At what had been taken from us so gradually we didn't even notice it happening. My grandmother never needed health insurance for minor ailments. She had a garden. When I got a persistent cough last winter, my first instinct was to drive to the pharmacy, spend $30 on cough syrup that didn't work and made me drowsy. Then I remembered thyme. I made a simple tea, steeping fresh thyme leaves for 10 minutes, adding honey. The cough that had been keeping me awake for a week was manageable within hours, gone within 3 days. Thyme contains thymol and carvacrol, compounds with proven antimicrobial and antispasmodic properties. It's why it was used for respiratory infections for centuries. It's why it still works. I started testing everything. When my back seized up from too much time hunched over a computer, I made a rosemary oil infusion and massaged it into the muscles. The pain released. Rosemary contains rosmarinic acid and camphor, both documented analgesics and anti-inflammatories. When my daughter developed a skin rash, I made a calendula salve the way Grandma's journal described. The rash cleared in 2 days. Calendula's triterpenes, saponins, and flavonoids promote tissue regeneration and reduce inflammation. These aren't miracles. They're botany. They're chemistry. They're medicine that grows freely, that anyone can access, that our bodies recognize because we evolved alongside these plants for millennia. The pharmaceutical industry has done remarkable things. I'm not suggesting we abandon emergency medicine or critical care, but for everyday ailments, for minor injuries, for preventive health, we've become helplessly dependent on a system that profits from our ignorance, a system that charges us hundreds of dollars for synthetic versions of compounds that grow wild in our yards. And more than the money, we've lost something deeper. We've lost the knowledge of how to care for ourselves and our families without asking permission, without a prescription, without a credit card. I now grow 47 medicinal plants in my backyard. My daughter, who's 12 now, can identify and use 15 of them. When she gets a headache, she doesn't ask for ibuprofen. She makes herself peppermint tea. When she scrapes her knee, she knows to grab a plantain leaf. She's learning. What my grandmother knew, what her grandmother knew, what every human being knew until about 70 years ago when we collectively decided that nature was primitive and pills were progress. Last month, my neighbor saw my garden and asked what I was growing. When I told her, she started crying. She said her mother used to make the same remedies and she'd forgotten all of it. She thought it was gone forever. I gave her cuttings. Now she's learning again. Now she's teaching her kids. That's what this is really about. It's not about rejecting modern medicine. It's about reclaiming the knowledge that's our birthright as human beings. It's about remembering that we don't have to be helpless, that we don't have to hand over our power and our money every time we get a headache or a cough or an upset stomach. It's about looking at a feverfew plant and knowing that it can stop a migraine, not because some corporation told you so, but because generations of grandmothers proved it worked. It's about passing that knowledge to your children so they can pass it to theirs. Every plant I've mentioned, every remedy, every preparation method is documented in detail in the guide I've linked in the description below. I'm sharing this because this knowledge is too important to let die with the last generation that remembers it. We're at a turning point. If we don't preserve this now, it's gone. Not for us, but for everyone who comes after. I think about my grandmother often now, especially when I'm working in my garden. She never called herself a healer, never made what she did seem special. It was just life. She grew food, she grew medicine, and when someone needed help, she helped. That used to be normal. That used to be how communities functioned. Somewhere along the way, we outsourced that. We handed it to strangers in white coats and boardrooms who don't know our names, don't know our families, don't know our stories, and we lost something essential in that transaction. I'm trying to get it back, not just for myself, but for my daughter, for my neighbors, for anyone who's ever felt that gnawing frustration of being sick and broke and waiting hours in an urgent care for an antibiotic that might not even work. There's another way. It's not new. It's ancient. It's growing all around us, waiting for us to remember. 3 months ago, I got a message from someone who found my channel. She'd been spending hundreds of dollars a month on medication for chronic anxiety and insomnia. Nothing was working. She watched my video on chamomile and lavender, made the teas I described, grew the plants I recommended. She told me she's sleeping through the night now. She's off half her medications. Her doctor is amazed. I am not. My grandmother wouldn't be either. This is what these plants do. This is what they've always done. If you're still watching this, you're already curious. You already sense that something's missing from the way we live now, from the way we think about health and healing. Trust that instinct. Start small. Grow one plant. Learn one remedy. Make one tea. See what happens. Then grow another. Learn another. Before you know it, you'll look at your backyard differently. You'll look at those weeds differently. You'll look at your own body's ability to heal differently. The knowledge isn't gone. Not completely. Not yet. But it's fading fast. And every person who learns it, who practices it, who teaches it to someone else, is keeping it alive. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm not selling you anything except the idea that you're more capable than you've been taught to believe. That nature isn't something to conquer or control, but something to learn from. That your grandmother's medicine cabinet might have been better than anything you'll find at the pharmacy. I wish I could go back and thank her. Tell her I understand now what she was doing, why it mattered, why it matters even more today. But she's gone, and so is that generation. And soon their children will be gone too. And if we don't write this down, if we don't practice it, if we don't pass it on, it disappears completely. That can't happen. I won't let it happen. Neither should you. So here's what I'm asking. Learn these plants. Grow them. Use them. Teach your kids. Tell your neighbors. Share what works. Keep this knowledge alive. And if you want to be part of this journey, if you want to learn more about the forgotten remedies that kept families healthy, for generations, subscribe to this channel. Every video I make is another piece of that knowledge preserved, another remedy remembered, another skill reclaimed. We're building something here, not just a garden, but a community of people who remember, people who refuse to forget, people who understand that the best medicine might just be growing in their backyard, waiting to be recognized.